Welcome. My name is Dr. Erlene Avalon, and I'm a teaching professor and the director of the Lowell Institute School in the College of Professional Studies at Northeastern University. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to attend this session. I want to also thank Dr. Abdel Mustafa for organizing and facilitating today's discussion. Many thanks to my colleagues, Mary McCarthy and Natalie Bowers, for all of their support. The Lowell Institute School is part of Northeastern University's College of Professional Studies and has more than 50 years of experience aligning higher education with professional aspirations. LIS, as we call it for short, provides students with scholarships and opportunity to increase their level of engagement. Currently, programs underneath the LIS umbrella include analytics, biological sciences, biotechnology, digital communication and media, healthcare administration, health science, information technology, mechatronics, project management, and psychology. So as you can see, we have a number of our bachelor's degree completion programs that are in the LIS umbrella. We hope that you enjoyed today's mentoring session on project management. I know I'm personally looking forward to learning a lot about the field. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Abdel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Mary, for organizing this much needed mentorship series. And a special thanks to my colleague and friend, John. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting the invite. I know how busy you are. You have been very generous. We really appreciate this. My name is Abdel Mustafa. I am the faculty lead for project management program here at CPS. I also teach at the master's degree, also project management. I'm going to be the facilitator for this session, and we're going to keep it conversational. So the format is going to be like this. I'm going to ask John to introduce himself, to give us a bit background about what he's doing on area of project management. Then I will open the session by asking some questions, and we'll give you a chance to ask your questions, Mary and Erlene, and if anybody joining us later can also ask their questions. So John, I'm going to start with you. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is John Bleakney. I am currently a co-op coordinator within the College of Engineering within Northeastern University. I've been in this job since January of 2017, so just entering my 9th year. My day-to-day responsibilities include teaching a course on the co-op prep course, Intro to Co-op for graduate students, as well as advising graduate and undergraduate students in their co-op search. And then the third piece is reaching out to employers or doing employer management about trying to find co-op opportunities and opening the doors for our students. On the side, though, I teach engineering project management on right now Monday nights, and I've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years, and I love it, where I use my experience from industry and teach a course on project management and what the industry knowledge and what the Project Management Institute is looking for. And part of my class, which I'm really proud of, is it's one of the few classes that's geared towards community engagement. A lot of the students, half the class is like the lectures and taking quizzes or exams, but the other piece is running a semester-long project with a nonprofit organization within the Boston area. And that's where students can actually apply what they're learning from class into a real-world setting. And for graduate students who are mostly international, it's great because it gives them a lot of an opportunity under the experiential learning umbrella at Northeastern of gaining some sort of experience before they graduate. And undergraduates who seem to be who are U.S. citizens also have an opportunity of giving back to the community that they've been spending the last 4 or 5 years in.
Thank you, John. This is wonderful. Would you mind telling us a bit about your educational journey, like how educational and professional journey? How do you end up at Northeastern University?
I tell that story to my students, and it takes a couple of minutes, but I majored as what I call in power and money. That's my joke. Economics and political science from Drew University back in 1993. And my first job was, we were in a recession. So I got a job at a local bank in Boston, and it was a temp job, and I still had the school bug in me. So I decided to go to graduate school. I wanted to get a PhD in economics. I did not have the math background that I was looking for. So I ended up getting a master's degree from SUNY Albany, State University of New York at Albany, in international economics. I graduated in 94, 95, still in a recession. I wanted in the government, couldn't find anything, got a job at a local bank with a master's degree as a teller. And when I was there, they saw some potential and they put me into a program of customer service, how to improve customer service. So I took that, stayed there for a year, and I needed to save money, do new things. So I moved back home and I got my first real job at John Hancock Financial Services back in 1996, where I was a customer service representative. And what I say to it, that is the reason they hired me, because they loved my customer service background, or how I answered questions from the job at the bank. I was there for a year, and then I transitioned to the other area I was there for the most of my career, in group pensions. And I got hired for that part because of my degree, master's degree in economics. So even though I seem like I'm going back and forth, everything seemed to have a purpose how I got there. And I did group pensions, and I did various things. And eventually I was a special projects manager, where we had different things. So I helped open office in the Philippines. We moved different locations to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We created new products, and I was involved with all that. And that's the first way I got involved with projects. They laid me off after 15 plus years. I bounced around. During my time at John Hancock, I taught at Quincy College as an adjunct instructor in economics. That gave me the school bug. My dad always said I could be a great college professor, so I did that. I ended up at State Street for a bit doing disaster recovery, business continuity planning, which I learned at John Hancock, and that's part of project management as well. But I got a job at ITT Tech, tried as an adjunct, and an opportunity arose because the assistant dean left and there was an opening. So I made a decision about whether or not I want to stay at my job at State Street or go into education full time. I made the jump to education full time. I was associate dean for about a year, and then the company went under. They shut down. So I was unemployed. So I've been unemployed in 3 times in a 5-year period. It was not fun. But when I was unemployed for that 3rd time, the state of Massachusetts said, John, you're a dislocated worker because of your age. You're over 35 and much older than that now. But what skill sets do you need? And I didn't know if I wanted to do education or my project management stuff that I did before. And they said, well, if you want project management, we have a program where you can go take a course to get your PMP certification. You can get your Lean Six Sigma Green Belt, and you can get a Scrum Master certification. These are all skills needed. So I got that. I said, sure. And my first few days I was there, I got a call from Northeastern, because I've been looking for jobs. Say, hey, do you want to, come in for an interview? I think I had like 7 applications I submitted. I had 3 interviews, different departments. MGen, the Multidisciplinary Graduate Engineering School program within the College of Engineering, they interviewed me and they hired me. And I think part of the reason why they hired me was we have a huge international population. I used to work with people from India. And I think that was the connection, or part of the reason. So I got hired, and I've been there ever since. My neighbor in the office was Hemlona Palike, who she's the program manager for engineering management within the College of Engineering. She taught project management. She and I started talking. She went away for a business trip to help promote the university, and I covered her classes when she was out. Next thing you know, they said, you want to teach project management, and the rest is history.
That's really great. That's really great, John. Very wide and rich experience of industry and academia. We are very happy to have you at Northeastern University, and you have been very resourceful and helpful for our students. I'm wondering, what are some of the challenges, if you can point to some challenges that you faced and kind of shaped the way you are today?
In the project management field, when I was my time at John Hancock, I was running projects, but I didn't have anyone really reporting to me.
Mm.
So that was called like a functional type of organization in from the using PMI type or PMP type terms, where I'm trying to run projects. And how do you get people to work on a project when you don't have a direct responsibility, reporting responsibility. So from that piece, I learned trying to develop rapport. How do you escalate in a manner that doesn't get people in trouble? Trying to build a relationship that if you ask for somebody, people believe you. How do you, I learned that. I was a younger person back then. Did they respect me? So trying to prove that. So I use these stories in my project management class about, getting to know people, the relationship building, and especially our young students going on co-op. How do you talk to somebody that's on the factory line that's been around for 20 to 30 years, and you have a young person from Northeastern coming in and think they know everything? So how do you interact with that? And so that's what I teach. Unfortunately, it's not a hard class. Project management is not difficult. You need planning skills. It's all about communication. And what might work for one person may not work well for another person. You just need to know that. So to me, the important skill is communication, whether it be writing dashboard reports, memos, interacting with people. If you can interact with people and they trust you and they believe in you, it makes life easier for you when you're running projects, especially if they don't report to you.
That's
So
wonderful.
I have a question. I think
Go ahead. Yeah.
John, this is perfect what you just mentioned. So my question was related to what you mentioned, shared earlier about being laid off 3 times in a relatively short time span. Like, what soft skills do you feel that you possess or had that enabled you to be successful in trying to find the next job? Because I think a lot of people are concerned about job stability right now. So outside of kind of like all the technical skills that you had, you mentioned communication, which is very important, but what other soft skills did you feel really helped you to secure that next position?
So when I was unemployed 3 times, one time I was laid off, another time I basically quit because it was a horrible experience work-wise. So I had to think about my health over the place. And the third time I was unemployed because the company shut down. So I've seen it all. But when I remember the first time when I got laid off from John Hancock, I called people and say, just to let you know, I got laid off just because I wanted to file a report. And people came up to me and said, hey, just give me your resume. I'll see what I can do to help. I didn't ask for that. They did it. They did it on their own. And I think what it is because I talk to people, I'm friendly, and more importantly, I'm genuine, or I'm very sincere when I talk to people. And when I tell students in project management, if you're asking for something, that better not be the first time you're asking that person, they don't know who you are. So it starts at day one. When you go into the office, who do you say hello to? Ask them about, their family, or you see a picture on the desk, talk to them about that. Try to get to know them, because that's how you build rapport. And then if you need something, it's harder for them to say no. Or if they do say no, they're going to find a way, like, let me see if there's a way for me to help you out where I can. So you have to be sincere. You have to be genuine. You have to really take an interest in liking people or talking to people. And there's ways to do that so you don't get walked on and people take advantage of you. We can talk about that later. But the idea is, if you like people and it shows, people are more willing to help you out. That's, and people came up to, I didn't even ask for people. They just say, yeah, let me help you out because of the relationships I built before.
No, that's a good point. Networking is so vital, I think, particularly nowadays, in terms of identifying other, other support systems, finding other employment opportunities, other groups to join, particularly if you're, if you have a very specific interest, such as project management. But I think now more than ever, networking is just so important. And just where we are in 2025 with the use of technology and social media, that tends to be a little bit easier than it was, a decade or so ago.
But I think I don't think people network properly. Especially maybe the people in CPS, if they're an older type of worker, like if you're saying the average age might be in the late 20s, early 30s, but especially the younger people, they don't know how to network. What they do is they go to LinkedIn and they say, hey, do you have a job?
Yeah.
The answer is yes, no, that's it, or apply here. That's not networking. Networking is, hey, do you have time for an information review? Or I'm interested in this field. Do you have some time to talk? And that's how you start building it. And then it obviously, when you go on the co-op or internship, start talking to people about what they do, and then you start to get to know people. Most people, it's a transaction. Do you have it? Yes or no? And that's it. But network is much more than that. And I don't think people realize that. It's not hard. You hear the word networking, people get scared. But if you say, hey, let's try to get to know people, get to learn, get new friends, it's a little bit easier, or another way to look at those things. Make it life easier. Mary, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks so much. This is so interesting. When I was listening to your journey through various industries, I think I heard you say disaster planning and the Philippines. Were those two things connected? Disaster planning and the Philippines?
Same place. I mean, same time. So like Philippines was at a place the company wanted to save money, so they wanted to open up an office in the Philippines. At the same time, that was part of the project to help design that. The other part of the project is, how do we do disaster recovery and business continuity planning?
So that's actually my question is, when I think about mentors, I think about people who have traversed a path before me, and I want what they have, and I'm seeking to get some counsel or guidance. But it sounds like this is the sort of thing where maybe there was someone who never had done what you were put in charge of doing. So in those instances, did you have any mentors that helped you navigate something that was so new, like disaster planning in a foreign country?
No. So it was from the company said, hey, we need to put plan in place. We have this new software. You got to learn it. And then we started talking to people. And I remember we had to do what's called a tabletop exercise, which was, what would happen if this happened, and what would happen if this 1 week later? When I did it, and we had to go to each department, so what is their plan, and do they have stuff in place to continue their business? All right. This is before laptops. They had the computers. Very rarely did we have actually webcams. This was like you have paper. You did benefit calculations like by pen and paper. But we talked about this thing called the avian flu virus, starting off in China, coming over to Europe, to the United States. And I had one person come to me. He was like, I think if I remember right, he was like head of our finance department. He said, why are we talking about this? This will never, ever happen. 10 years later, we had COVID, right? You never know. When I went to State Street and worked there, totally different culture. I worked with people in Australia, the UK, and they were very big on, they took it seriously. Hey, if this happens, this is what we would do. If this happens, this is what we do. Thanks to take the time to speak with me. So but I think maybe business continuity was very new back then when I did at John Hancock. But at State Street, a few years later, it was ingrained in their culture. It's important. So how would you handle things? And I heard a story, because I talked to a colleague, that at John Hancock, when COVID happened, the Philippines didn't have, their disaster recovery plan, they had to shut down. So their plan, that the whole site was shut down supposedly. So they had to call do you know anybody here in the US that wants to work part-time for us to help do these benefit calculations and stuff like that? That was their disaster recovery planning. Ask your family and friends, which is pretty poor. I'm just like, but it was crazy the things that sometimes they think they're all planned and things happen, they're not, And then again, how does that relate to the job, to when you're talking about risk? Disaster recovery planning is risk.
Right.
Are you willing to accept that risk? Do you transfer that risk? Do you avoid that risk? Do you accept it? How do you handle those risks? And some people just ignore it. Some people accept it, or people transfer that risk to something else. So that's part of the process. So, that's an exciting. If you're going to project management, that's a pretty cool avenue to go to. Disaster recovery, business continuity planning.
Right.
It's very big.
Right.
So who were your mentors, Abdel or John, along the way, who maybe I'd love to hear something about some great advice you got along the way and some advice you wish you had not taken.
John, I thank you. I think this is really this is an important question. Mentoring. For me, I worked in different places, overseas and here. I think one of the things that I got from one of my mentor, he told me one thing that he learned a great deal, and I used and I did that for myself, is that he always will try his best to appreciate other people's contribution. He said, when you're in a team, the best things you can do, just appreciate other people's contributions and see what they will bring that you did not think about. So I thought that was really a good tip for me. John, what about you? What are some of those tips that you got along the way?
Well, my manager, his name is Dave Eisen, was my manager at John Hancock, and I consider him a mentor. He taught me a lot about management and how to run a business and how to treat people. I remember one day like going to a conference or to a workshop. He said, as long as you come back with one thing that was a successful workshop or a successful business trip. I remember that. So if I can go to those meetings and remember one thing, to me that's successful. Yeah. I remember being aware of other things. That eventually, unfortunately, we had layoffs at one time, and it was staggered, and we were changing seats around and moving things, different floors, and we were all excited. And he just figured the blueprints came out, and my manager goes, "Why are you doing this? Because today is the last day for some people." And I didn't even remember that. So being aware of your surroundings, being aware how things might come across to affect different people, that really had a big impact on me. And then there are managers that did things that you did not like. Those are important as well. So you can learn about what to do and what not to do. So I didn't go to that manager and say, I'm never going to do this, but you just observing things, and how you observe and how to treat people can go a long way. The culture.
That's important.
And it takes time too. So if you go from one company to another one, that can take a long time to adjust to that culture.
We see a questions here. Do you have a question? Is that Solange?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So my question is, I'm having a really hard time right now transitioning in between what I'm doing right now and going into project management. I'm currently in healthcare, and I have a background in human services, social services, and I did go to Northeastern before this for psychology. And now I randomly decided I wanted to be in IT, and I'm having a hard time selling myself to transition. I know I have some transitional skills, and that's not really the problem. It's, the resume. How do I get people to want to talk to me? How I can bridge that, the gap between what I know and what I can learn. So I don't know. I'm wondering if you guys have any tips or, what key skills I could highlight that would, make the shift successful.
I have lots of thoughts, but I don't want to take it away from anybody.
Go for it.
One thing it would be, so going back to project management, most people don't want to become project managers. They usually fall into it. And so the Project Management Institute has this thing called the PMBOK, the Project Management Book of Knowledge, which is like best practices. So people that want to go into project management, that's why you need to have like 3 years of experience in a 7-year period to get your PMP designations, because they want you to have some experience first. So the experience, is it Solange? Is that how you pronounce your name? Is that correct? Yeah. The way I would approach it is, you're going in there. Can you rethink about what you've done from a project perspective? I know you've done projects, right? So one project, tell my students, as you get into going to getting accepted to the CPS school is a project by the definition. So one way is to rethink things in a project way can help with the resume is you can change some of those keywords. The idea that you want to transfer over to IT, that's where the networking piece comes in, or you reach out to people like maybe within your organization, or you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm trying to make this transition to IT. Can you sit down for like 5 or 10 minutes and give you some advice? And you start developing that relationship. I think being sincere and excitement in your conversations, and I can hear it in your voice, can go a long way as well. If someone really believes what you're saying, they can hear in your voice, like, I want to hire this person, or I want to give this person a chance because I think they're going to do a great job. So one thing you say is, why are you making this change? Why are you interested in IT? Why are you, if you can have some good examples and clearly articulate that, you're in good shape. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Was it helpful? That's the key thing.
Yes, and I knew that the networking piece was going to come up, and I asked a similar question at the last panel.
So how would you network?
Networking has become so hard for me now that the world is kind of remote. Most of my life is in my household. I take care of my family members, everything comes to your house if you get it delivered. Like, a lot of my world is at home. And previously, when I was in the healthcare setting, I work at a hospital, I was able to communicate and interact with people. I'm going to community events to meet with patients, and I'm meeting other people. And I don't have too much of that right now. The networks that I have right now, just kind of the people that were set from before the pandemic, and we're all, we pretty much have the same network. So it's been a little bit more challenging, and I'm confident, but I'm a little bit shyer when I'm in new territory to say, hey, this is something new that I want to do, and I need help with this, or I need guidance. So I think that's where I'm a little stuck with the networking. I do know how to talk to people. I've been doing it for my job for a long time. So, I have that down. Just how can I get myself in front of you to speak to you?
There's an organization called meetup.com or meetup.org. I think it's meetup.com, which is an organization where I think it's like not a dating app, but it's an organization for people with like-minded ideas to get together. It usually be like, hey, people like to play cricket. Let's meet up here. But you can also do that. It's getting more and more involved with also for the business world, IT network groups. And you can do it hybrid. You can do it virtual. You can do it in person. And you can look that up, and you can pick a city, and you can say in-person events. And that might be another way for you to actually reach out to people with like-minded people.
Okay.
That meetup.com, I believe.
Right.
I do know, like the PMI, like the Mass Bay chapter of the Project Management Institute, they have a lot of like networking type events. But unfortunately, I find that you go to those, there are a lot of people such as yourself, Solange, like hey, they're looking for jobs or trying to start their own company, so they're not getting the right people. But if you keep trying, that's one thing. The other thing is, are you working now? Are you?
Yes.
And what is there a chance for you to actually go into the office, right, or to get out of the door? Because that can be helpful as well. Try to, if you're always at home, what can you do to break that up? Or
yeah, I do go into the office sometimes, but it's mostly I'm speaking with my patients.
So an idea is do an informational interview with somebody. I'm sure there's an IT type person within the hospital, right? Hey, do you have a few minutes to talk? How did you get involved here?
Okay.
There's also Eventbrite. I'm not sure if you use the website called Eventbrite. They have a lot of, I actually use it quite a bit. And my background's public health. And so you go on Eventbrite, to John's point, you pick the city, and then like, I'm free this weekend, what comes up underneath my interest of public health or IT or project management or healthcare. And there's a bunch of events that you can do in person, on ground. A lot of it's free, but it's just people who have common interests. It's kind of like the meetup. And then they might do some fun activity. Are you working in the Longwood medical area?
Yes, I work for Mass General Brigham.
Okay. So MGB is great because they have a ton of affinity groups. And so you might want to also look at reaching out to HR, MGB HR, to see what type of affinity groups that they do have, because it might not necessarily be at the hospital that you're working at, but they used to rotate based upon like each month, like Mass General will host an affinity group for people that were interested in this area. And then it'll be at the Brigham Women's Hospital, then it'll be at Faulkner. And so they would rotate, so that way you also get to meet individuals that's kind of like their home base. And usually all the affinity groups are relatively free, and they're always looking for volunteers. So, I mean, I've joined affinity groups as a member, and like the next year or 2 years later, I'm like leading the whole thing. So you definitely want to see what type of affinity groups. And that Longwood medical area is really good because, I mean, outside of MGB, you have Beth Israel, you have Boston Children's, Jocelyn, and Dana-Farber, and they also have affinity groups. So once you get connected to like the MGB affinity groups, they usually all try to get together just so everyone can meet and kind of share knowledge, and it's a different type of networking. So those are just two things, like the Eventbrite, and look at calling or reaching out to human resources to see what type of affinity groups that they have that you might be interested in.
Thank you.
I would add to this. Affiliation. Those student chapters. For example, we have project management club, and in that project management club, we invite practitioners, industry people to come and talk to the students. So instead of we go to the employers, we ask them to come to us. So try to get, I know your time would be very limited, but try at least to get online with this affiliation. And as Erlene was saying, the affinity groups, those are very good places where you will have a better understanding of the professions, you will have better connections. But I like the way you approach things. By just raising these questions, you're doing very good networking, and I would encourage you to share your resume, with others. You can share your resume with me or John. Especially John, is very good at looking at resume. I'm volunteering you, John, here. But from my experience with you, you have a very, because you have been doing this for some time. So get somebody to look at your resume, to give you feedback on your resume, have a list of recommendations and references for the future. So, but I think you are on the right track by asking questions. John, I have a question for you. Just project management in general, for those people who are not familiar with project management. So what is the lay of the land for somebody who's just approaching project management? What is this project management about? You mentioned communication. What else is there?
A project management is a way for people to make sure projects are done, hopefully, or the best way to get it done in a timely manner, on budget, and within the same scope. The PMI Association, the Project Management Institute, has this designation called PMP, Project Management Professional, or the lower level is CAPM, which is Associate Project Manager, CAPM. But it gives you best practices on how to run projects. And it gives you tools about, what are some of how do I reach out to stakeholders? How can I talk? What is a stakeholder? How do I interact with them? How can I negotiate with people if I need more resources? How do I develop a plan? How do I develop a budget? All right. And as a project manager, your job is not to know all those answers. Your job is to get those answers and to facilitate that the project gets done in the manner that the client, whoever that client is, it could be internal, it could be external, wants. And if you and I tell people, if you like to sit behind your desk all day and not talk to people, project management is not for you. If you like to get up each day, talk to people, if you don't mind having to set tasks in the morning and all of a sudden they're all gone because other issues come up instead, and you like that type of environment, project management is right for you. However, I will say it's hard to get into project management, especially if you're new, because when I was at State Street, I wanted to go to project management, and they said, we don't know you. You haven't been with the company long enough, so you need to be here at least a year. So a lot of times they hire from internal because they want you to know what the culture is. So for example, are you in a functional type of organization? Are you in a project management organization? Are you in a hybrid? There are different types of cultures and how you interact. And if you know how to interact with people, what the company culture is, it's going to be much easier for you to make that transition. Now, some companies hire external contractors to do projects, which is fine, but it takes some time to get to speed with the culture is and the company culture is, and to see what they want. But again, it's documentation, communication. What are you looking for? When do you need it? What's the cost? How much are you willing to give? Can I choose people? Do you give me the people? It's all about talking to people and understand what their needs are. And if you can do that and you like it, you're going to have a very good career. And now there was a slide, I forget the slide is in our class, about if you don't have a project manager, lots of projects are over budget. They take a lot longer. Companies don't hire the skills they needed. They don't think project managers are needed. Project managers are needed because it might be, take out costs because you're not developing anything. But the idea is you're as a project manager, you're organizing and planning everything and making sure it gets done. You're telling people, don't forget to do this, or what's the status of this, and then saying that to senior leadership. You actually save the company money. You help organize it. And if you want to move up the flagpole, as they say, they look at those project managers because you have those skill sets they're going to be looking for. You have a good you know what the company's like or the projects, you have a good head on for that. Either the details, you're working with people, conflict resolution, negotiating, those are great skills to get that people are looking for. Does that answer your question?
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yes, indeed. Do you see any new trends, new areas opening up in project management? Everybody now is talking about AI and the impact of AI on. Do you see trends that people need to focus on?
So project management came about, I think, from government, like organizations, government contracts or projects, and then it slowly moved to like larger projects or companies and organizations. It used to be more like construction, and now projects can be for any industry, right? Just like data analytics is like any industry. So it could be pharmaceutical, it could be healthcare, it could be finance. There's always a need to have a project manager to run a project. The trends we're seeing is AI. And in fact, it's such a big deal that the Project Management Institute actually has an AI tool on their website to help answer questions for people looking for different things related to project management. Help me with earned value analysis or whatever it is, or how do you plan a project? You type it into their AI tool and information will come out. So they're actually using AI to help people with project management to run projects, but you still need that person to review it to make sure it looks legit. But the AI is a big tool. People like the project, MS Project as a tool, and a lot of my students want to use those tools. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, again, the project management is a way to communicate. You can use Excel to do the same thing if that's what they're looking for. I wouldn't focus so much on some of the tools or the current trends, but because that can change. Trello boards is a big one that people are using to organize tasks. But AI is a little bit different. I think AI is that's not going anywhere. That's here to stay. So you need somebody smart enough to analyze that information to make sure it's legit as well. But AI is definitely a trend.
Yes, that's great. Any questions for him from you guys? I have a lot of questions, but John, we have many international students at CPS, and you work with some of them. What shall we do in terms of mentoring to help them out, because they come from a quite different professional backgrounds? What is your take on this when it comes to international students?
Their biggest issue would be just company culture. Working in the U.S. basically from in their home country, being on time, might be different from one culture compared to another. what's expected in the U.S. versus could be expected in China or in India. So that's the big thing. But I'm not. But that also could be the youth of the people as well, because some of these students are right out of college, transferring in there. They're still young, not have been in the workforce a long time. But I would think just gain used to the U.S. culture and how to work there. And again, the communications piece is tough, is big. If you're not going to go to work, you got to let your manager know. You can't be abrupt sometimes. So, some people don't like that. Some people do. But just being aware of what the culture is of the organization and the country that you live in is important. I think like in Japan, the Japanese culture might be, you're not as direct, but it's understood. Like, oh, let's meet at 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm not sure. I might be able to make it. I'm not sure, but that really means like that's no. Let's think another. But they don't want to go out there and say no, that's the wrong time. The U.S. might be a little bit more direct. It really depends. So being flexible and adaptable and trying to figure out, learn quickly about the culture. But
I wonder, Lynn and Mary, if we have classes that are geared to this, those cultural differences, or because I think these need to be addressed, it's not to be left to be addressed by default, right? Students need to be directed. Are there some classes like that at CPS?
I personally do not know of any classes at CPS. I know that sometimes in my courses, I will have students from different backgrounds. And then what I have done as a faculty member is I have hosted, I call it tea and coffee hours, where students can meet with me individually. We could talk about the class. We could talk about things kind of related to, say, public health. And then usually in those sessions, which I have one-on-one with students, then when I maybe felt comfortable enough to ask me something about the differences between maybe their culture and say the American culture, or different, all different type of things that people talk about. And so usually if a student has some trust in a faculty member, then they might feel comfortable asking certain type of questions. But I know that's what I have done in my class to kind of help bridge some of the divide that some students might be feeling, especially maybe being new here in the United States, just not sure what to turn to for help and support, or to learn more about the culture. Actually, I share that Eventbrite website all the time and give students a list of museums and just things that they can do in and around the Boston community, just so they can feel part of the community, which, I travel a lot. So sometimes I need someone to kind of help be my guide as well. But I don't know if we have any classes per se. Maybe it may be part of our global studies program, but I'm not 100% sure. Mary, do you know?
I'm not aware of any coursework, but we are piloting a mentorship program starting this summer that will be a connection between alumni and students. And we're going to start it on a very small scale, I think something like 20 or less, where we're actually pairing up alumni, industry experts with current students, because there's a wealth of knowledge, there's a lot of expertise to be shared, but making those formal connections is something that we're going to just take a little test to see if we could get involved in making those connections. And there would be an orientation involved, an application, and then some basic expectations, because mentorship can be as casual as you talk to someone once a year, or as structured as you talk to someone once a month. And we want to make it sustainable for both participants and rewarding, knowing that mentorship can be one's expectations. It's not that these are professional mentors. Sometimes we get bad advice from folks, right? Sometimes we get, and so there's a sort of waiver we have to explore. Like, I understand that I'm embarking on this relationship that may be beneficial, but that we're not endorsing that this is Northeastern signed off advice. It's just a pathway. So we're going to see how that goes, and you'll hear more about it. It's going to be coming out of the dean's office, and it's a small pilot program between alumni and current students. But I mean, to your point about the international students, I once participated in a resume advising discussion. I couldn't leave for about 45 minutes. I had people lining up who just wanted 2 minutes, just read this. And they were desperate for feedback. And so I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to give to people, but we also have to be mindful of boundaries, where it's like, don't overcommit. Arlene is so generous with her time with students, but sometimes it's like, okay, I can give you 15 minutes and that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is like the resume may help you. Students that are having problems finding a job think might be the resume. Now, if you work with a co-op coordinator and gotten reviews, it's not the resume, it's other things that they need to do, like networking, things like that. Changing one word is not going to help you get that interview. You know, it's more than that, like the networking piece. And they want that quick hit. There's no, very rarely is there a quick answer, a quick hit. Right. You remind me of two other things. The Gordon Engineering Leadership Program. Are you familiar with the Gordon Engineering Leadership Program?
Oh.
Take a look at that. They work with the College of Engineering here at Northeastern, and it started off. I think the person that started it was in the military, and when he came back, he realized like you had people. I'm not sure it's a Vietnam era or what, but you had these young kids leading platoons, and you have these graduate students coming in, like they might be older, a year or the same age as these platoon leaders, but they have no leadership skills. So it's a program for them to teach students are accepted to develop their leadership skills as well as the engineering. And I believe the organization is trying to reach out to different organizations to help them sell like the leadership piece. I wonder if the CPS school would be, especially given that the students are a little bit older compared to our undergraduates, might be willing to team up and talk about this leadership piece and bring it to the CPS, or talk to organizations such as Brigham Women's Hospital to say, let's talk about leadership. And those are other skills. And then what other skills that students would need? I remember Lean Six Sigma and Scrum Master. So Lean Six Sigma is to try to identify issues, like we have this waste, how do we improve the process? If you can identify the waste, now you need a project manager to fix it or to run that project to address the issue. So it's a nice segue. And then Scrum is more of like, as they call it, agile environment, where things are always changing. And it's a way for students or people to learn about how to work in an environment where projects, scopes might always be changing. So for example, like IT, like a phone, like Apple, it's like a Scrum area, because they put a phone out, and next thing you know, you have another edition later on, and then another. Well, they're trying to build upon the process. That's a Scrum or agile environment, and that's a trend. So you're seeing in a trend of both waterfall approach, which is a traditional project, and then Scrum, agile, which is always changing. And now the trends are you have a mixture of both. So if you can do a traditional and an agile, and the PMP designation and the CAPM is actually addressing agile. But on the third Thursday of every month, I have this thing called the Evidence-Based Project Management Roundtable, which is free, which is part of the Mass Bay chapter. And we talk people coming in where you talk about theory and reality, real world, and you combine it. There's a lot of presentations where they're combining both agile and hybrid, or agile and waterfall approach, and making it a hybrid. And that's the trend that they're seeing. So not only with AI, but a mixture of both traditional and agile.
That's really very helpful, John. To classify the project management into these three areas: traditional, just like construction project, which is very traditional way of doing waterfall, then agile and the hybrid, a mix of those two. I think we are about to conclude this hour, but I want you to emphasize something that you mentioned. You said that people don't know how to network properly, and I think that's very important. That's a key, because most of the struggle that we have from the student regarding job. Would you please just summarize some tips for people to improve their network skills? What should the student do?
Well, a couple of things, like if you go to LinkedIn and you want to reach out to somebody you don't know, you don't give that person your resume, the attachment, because LinkedIn is your resume. You don't write a huge blurb about, it's short and sweet. People don't have time to remember So you can say, hey, can you please connect? Or I saw your profile resonates with me. Do you have a few minutes to talk, or do you mind connecting? And then when you want to, what's your ask? You want to talk to them later on. If they connect, you can say, hey, do you have a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes of your time? I'm trying to get into this industry or into this. Love your feedback. Once you say, hey, do you have a job? That stops the conversation, unless you're a recruiter and they're looking for it. But if you're going to a hiring manager or somebody like myself and say, do you have any jobs? The answer is no. If you want to apply, go to this link. And then the conversation ends. However, if I want to use you, Solange, if you say to me, hey, John, I'm interested in IT and in project management, do you have a few minutes to talk? I'm more likely to say, yeah, let's have a conversation. But then you need to follow up. People forget to follow up. So they meet with me and I never hear from them again. It would be great for somebody to say, Solange and I met for 5 or 10 minutes. A couple of weeks later, she says, hey, John, thanks for your advice. This is what I did. Oh, great. Thanks for taking my advice. Do you have time for another meeting or just an update? And now you're starting to develop a relationship. So now if I come across and they say, hey, do you know anybody that has healthcare experience trying to get into IT? I know you right away. Your name comes to the top because we've had these conversations. So people forget to follow up. The people are asking the wrong questions. Do you have a job? The answer is no, or so reply here. That's it. I mean, what's going on? Those are nice emails to get. Hey, what's going on? This is what I've done. Thanks for your advice. Let me know if you have any others. But once you say, do you have any jobs for me? I'm like, I have all of my other students to apply for jobs. You got to, it's not easy for me to say yes over you. But if somebody comes to me and said, do you know anybody? If I remember our conversation, you come to the top of my mind. Yeah, I'll definitely recommend you.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful tip. Arlene, I will leave it to you to close us out. I want to thank you, John, again for these wonderful conversations. And thank you both, Arlene and Mary, for organizing this very much needed mentorship series. I'm sure we're going to follow up with you, John.
I hope so. I hope I did get good advice. You can give my people my name still, like LinkedIn, or my email address at North. You can feel free to give that out, and if people could say, "Hey, I heard your talk," that will be easier for me to remember.
Very good.
Great. And remember that this is also being recorded and it will be posted on our website. John and Abdel, in case you have someone who reaches out to you that was not at today's session, just know that they probably watched the recording of the session. But I do want to really thank you both for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come here and share your experiences about your career path, also your personal journeys, and then more importantly, some really strong mentoring advice for our students, not only in project management, but also just how to navigate the complexities around networking, mentorship, and kind of how to find your community. So I thank you both so much. And Mary, I always thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, this will be available online for students who would like to learn more about project management. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you next time.
Thanks, Mary. Was that good?